Cool. Hi everyone, this is Paul from Edge, and today I'm joined by Doug Tuman.
What's up?
Founder of Monerotopia, Monero Talk Live, easily the epicenter of the Monero community, online and in person, with some great events. And so today we're going to talk about Monero.
Awesome. I'm always down to talk about Monero.
Let's do it. All right, cool. So Doug, maybe you can give us a little bit of an insight onto when and why and how you got into Monero. Like what was that first early days?
Long story short, first crypto I ever bought actually was Dogecoin.
Woo.
I remember this because it was Christmas Eve 2013. I had heard about Bitcoin. I heard about Bitcoin actually from Silk Road. Saw it in like New York Times or something. They were the U.S. government was basically trying to crack down on the Silk Road, and they were using something called Bitcoin.
Right.
I was like, oh, it's probably just, I didn't realize it was decentralized, right? I heard the word Bitcoin, didn't realize they solved whatever, the double spend problem, all that jazz. So I ignored it, bought Dogecoin only because I heard about it, still not understanding the tech, but I was like, you know what, let me just get some of this stuff, maybe I could turn $50 worth into $5,000 worth. I bought it on Reddit. Somebody just via PayPal, I bought it and they sent me $50 worth of Doge. I stored it in an online wallet and I woke up the next morning on Christmas Day and all my Doge was stolen.
Jeez.
I was like, this technology is so stupid.
What online wallet was this?
This was the Dogecoin wallet. It was a great Christmas hack of like Doge.
Yeah.
Like it was everybody's Doge got fleeced.
So you had it for a grand whole 1-2 days?
It was the best 50 I ever lost because then that set me down the crypto rabbit hole. Because I was like, there's no way this tech is built in such a way where you could just like lose all your crypto and like that easily. And that's when I read the Bitcoin white paper, the private key, public key, and then boom, overnight, now I'm a Bitcoin maxi, right? Like
as everyone starts.
I left Doge. I'm like, I'm interested in this tech. Monero, wow, look at Satoshi, oh my God, amazing. But then there was the realization, my next thinking process, or what took me to Monero, was when I actually started to use Bitcoin. And I used it for a few things online. And as I'm sending it, I'm using it, and I'm looking on the blockchain to see if the transaction went through. And I'm looking at the wallet of the person or entity that's receiving it. I'm like, well, this is strange. Like, who else can look at this? Or when I'm sending my buddy who I'm trying to convince into crypto in the area, download a wallet, I'll send you some. Oh wow, Doug, you already like bought like a couple of Bitcoin, huh? Like this is weird that like the person I'm sending Bitcoin can now like see my wallet. So that quickly like opened my eyes, and I started researching to see what was going on to solve that problem. And I saw people talking already about chain analysis and what this can lead to. And that's when Monero came on the scene for me. That was like, I first heard Peter Todd talking about it actually in 2014. Satoshi Nakamoto himself.
And it launched yet in 2014, or was that kind of early days of
I think it was just being discussed. When he was talking about it on a podcast, it was like 50 cents at the time. And he was just talking about it openly and saying like it's an honest project. And I was like, all right, Peter Todd's saying that. I'm gonna look into this a little more. Unfortunately, it took quite some time until I finally said, because I was a BTC maxi, right? So like,
it hurt too much.
I'm not going to use my valuable Bitcoin to obtain something else. And eventually I jumped. I actually remembered the moment thinking about it, like taking a shower, and like I had the eureka moment with Monero in terms of what it offers versus what Bitcoin offers, and that it really lives up to the value proposition of why I got into crypto in the first place. Is that I want digital cash. That's what excited me about it when I learned about Bitcoin. It was like, wow, you can send anybody money anywhere for a fraction of a cent, and no corporation or government can see that you did that. And that was the thing that like got me so excited about Bitcoin. So that, had that same eureka moment with Monero, realizing this is what Bitcoin was meant to be. And if I move into Monero, I'm actually, I guess we could say this is a tremendous amount of cope, but I'm actually okay with, in the end, maybe ending up with a little less amount in fiat value, but I have a secure nugget of untraceable digital cash. And that was, that's my very honest
and you've helped the adoption of untraceable digital cash in the path, as opposed to just owning it. You've done far more than that, but actually drove a lot of people to understand it better, know how to use it, know its value proposition. And so after having discovered, and you guess you can call it your cope, and saying, okay, I'd rather have this than Bitcoin, or at least some amount of my Bitcoin in Monero. We don't have to share how much. But when did you then decide, I want to do something with this and work in this space and educate people? What brought you to that moment where you started creating content?
It was pretty early in my, my Monero exploration. So I had Monero, and then I was just so excited about the technology, and I was like, all right, well, to get involved in Bitcoin at the time, Bitcoin was already, at 2014, 2015, but like 2017, it was already pretty mature, right? There were already a lot of wallets and things, right? Yeah. You know this better than anybody. Yep. I saw a great opportunity with Monero, and then obviously that overlapping with me just wanting to grow Monero, right? Because I saw that's the only way this thing is going to work if people actually use it.
Right.
Let me roll up my sleeves and start. And I was always like entrepreneurial and wanting to work. I've worked on other things, but pre-crypto, right? Entrepreneurial experiments in the Liberty field. And so I saw Monero as this great opportunity to maximize my impact on what I can do in improving Liberty worldwide by working on something.
Great. So when did, I know you as someone that operates Monerotopia, which is both a podcast and an event, like an annual conference in Monero, focused on Monero, with a few other privacy coins in there as well, and then also doing Monero Talk Live. So when did those launch?
So I think my first project was like something called Quick Monero, and we never got it off the ground. It was a way to buy Monero redeemable cards at like 7-Eleven type things, right? That were redeemable for Monero online. You pay for cash. And I wanted to try to start this in New York.
Ooh,
and I was like, but this is early. Like things are still gray then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And but I got scared out of doing it for all the logical reasons. Right. I actually had the cards printed. I had the system built where you can retrieve. And then I balked at that. And when I started, really my first foray into Monero is we threw an after party in New York City after one of the Bitcoin. It was the Coin Desk conference, or it was like the big Bitcoin conference that took place in New York.
What year was that? Was that 2014?
A Monero after party. That was
2017. Oh, 17. Okay, got it.
2018. And so that became like the first real Monero event, right?
Nice.
And Fluffy Pony came. A lot of other characters came.
Gosh,
Peter Todd was there.
And you've actually had him at Monerotopia a few times.
Yes,
he is a Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah. I think he's the ultimate skeptic. So he's obviously a very intelligent guy and knows this stuff.
Ironic, he's the ultimate skeptic and a Bitcoin maxi. But if it wasn't for him, maybe you wouldn't have heard about Monero as early as you did.
Yeah. So I started with like meetups, throwing that big Monero after party, and then I started with the Monero Talk channel and started interviewing people in the space.
That was around 2017, 2018 time.
Yeah. There's like some of my oldest videos is me in New York at Fluffy Ponies conference, the magical crypto. Were you there?
I haven't gone to it, but I went to a CoinDesk conference adjacent to it, but I didn't make it over to the magic.
And I got like great interviews. Like I got Max Kaiser there being like, Monero's. I've always been interested in Monero.
Oh, back when Max Kaiser was in
I got like
some coin era.
Yeah, some real OGs like giving Monero street cred.
Nice.
But yeah, and then from there, I started Monerotopia in 2021 after I ran for Congress.
You told me about this story.
In New York, and we actually, it was a race. Like we almost, it was competitive. We got like 45% of the vote.
Oh my God.
So close. In a Democratic district, and I ran on Republican. I was backed by the local party.
Wow.
I won my primary.
That's razor close.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you heard of George Santos, right? The infamous George Santos.
Yeah.
He was running at the same time as me, literally the next district over on Long Island.
Wow.
And so I knew George Santos at the time. We both ran in 2020. I actually arguably did a little better than Santos in 2020 because I was in a plus 13 Democratic district. And then I didn't follow up and run again. Santos kept running. He ran again in 2022. And that's when things changed on Long Island politically.
So being a pretty liberty-minded person, what was the platform that you would run on in such a Democratic district? And how did you feel to get only a 5%?
So obviously I'm a libertarian, right? And this is when COVID just hit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was one of the earliest people to get COVID in Nassau. Like that was like reported cases. This was
my wife was like case 30 in San Diego.
Yeah, like when I got it, there was no. It was in February. It was in February. It was actually when I came back from Anarcho-Poco. Is when I got it. It was February, or it was like March, and it was when I just got tapped to run for Congress. And I was like, and I knew I had actually. I mean, we could go down so many paths.
Right,
here.
I know we could.
We could go down so many paths. So I was big. I was out there very early against against the
lockdowns,
lockdown super
yeah.
early. In my district, the party that backed me thought I was a little nuts at the time. There was a couple of other like extreme people on that side that came out, but they were like, whoa, 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 we don't know about this. So I was very early to that. And then I was anti-vax, with the COVID vax, and I was interviewing people in that space. And so that was my platform. It was a strong libertarian platform, and obviously I talked about Monero and the need for digital cash. But in the reality
you talked about that on the platform.
Well, yeah, the reality is you don't really talk about that much because you're running in a congressional district, and all the local constituents, especially back in 2020, they didn't even know what Bitcoin really was back then. It wasn't a topic they were very, very interested in, but. That was certainly part of my platform, and I actually accepted donations in Monero at the time.
And you were actually able to.
I mean, I did it for Monero at the time because I saw where the puck was headed. I thought there was going to be a moment where the U.S. government was going to try to effectively ban Monero. So I was like, this is what I can do to try to at least have somebody there on the floor of Congress to make the argument that I felt needed to be made in terms of protecting true, untraceable digital cash as a utility for people to use, free speech money. And I didn't see anybody yet talking about it in those terms. When the people in Congress in the early days, I'm sure you remember, right? Like when Bitcoin was first getting introduced and there were panels on it, it would always come down to, oh, okay, well, you're worried about this being used for financing terrorism, you're worried about it for being used for money laundering. Don't worry, it's actually completely traceable.
It's very trackable.
And so nobody then made the argument of, well,
what about Monero?
Should we even care about that? It should still be legal because people deserve to have access to free speech money.
They almost threw the future of privacy under the bus in an attempt to save Bitcoin.
Exactly.
It was definitely
right, and that's why I'm sitting there on the sideline. That's why I was like, somebody's got to go say, start framing it differently, right?
Got it. So why not take another crack at it since you're so close? And of course, we could use a Monero champion.
No, well, I mean,
it's a lot of work.
I learned a lot, and at the end of the day, I'm a cypherpunk. I'm a crypto anarchist. At the end of the day, I see this is where we can make the most impact, right? So, I thought I needed to do that at the time, and I could get things done for Monero and this revolution. But I think if I could achieve much more, just focusing on my Monero projects, and trying to grow adoption. I think. I watched how the sausage gets made as I ran, and I saw how political things are, and you can have this idea of yourself of who you want to be and how you want to be this independent warrior, but you're up against these very strong forces that are trying to constantly manipulate you, and it ends up becoming just a large waste of time. I mean, look at even the most extreme libertarians in Congress. I give them all the credit in the world, but it's very hard to actually achieve anything actionable.
No, that's fair. And I think a lot of discussions I get into when people say, oh, we need to fight against this bill or help to push this bill forward. I said, that's all great. I'm glad someone's fighting that effort, but nothing beats the masses using a technology.
Just opting out of dystopia, right? Ignore the system, ignore everything, opt out, build our own system outside of theirs, where we do, we, as liberty-loving, law-abiding citizens, we live off of each other peer-to-peer with digital cash, and there should be no qualms about allowing us to do that. And the most effective way to achieve that is to just start doing it and ignoring.
Right. Start actually transacting in the currencies we care about, the privacy coins that we care about. And you said build a new system. Well, what I like to say is yes, build a new system, use the new system, and then that actually becomes the system without the government realizing that they have any control over it.
Exactly.
But they will be dependent on it because the economy depends on it. When the economy depends on it, they can't squash it.
If you become big enough, right, where you're a player, and obviously Bitcoin has achieved that in a way, but in a way where I would say it's been co-opted, right? So you need it to be adopted and even become used by all parties, right? Even those that we may not philosophically agree with. Even the state might hold Monero, right? But it needs to be built in a way where if they do, the whole protocol and project isn't co-opted. And I think Monero, beyond its privacy, which obviously is the thing that first got me interested into it, is also, I think, is its unstoppability. And there's certain technologies that Monero has beyond its privacy tech that, in my mind, make it arguably more unstoppable in terms of harder to co-opt by the state.
Let's talk a little bit. Maybe we'll end with that. What are some of the things in Monero, in addition to its privacy, that make it far more resistant to government intervention?
Yeah, so I would say first thing is its ASIC resistance.
Okay,
So Monero
cool.
is mined by the CPU is the ASIC of Monero,
Right.
and that's proven to be pretty effective. It was designed by Howard Chu. It's called RandomX. It's now been adopted by other cryptos, and it appears to be working pretty well. And so now the CPU becomes the miner of Monero, and just because the way things work out economically, it wouldn't make sense to have large CPU corporation-owned mining farms that are competing to mine Monero, as opposed to what you see with ASICs, right? Because they have this specialization and this ability to be the only one that kind of have a monopoly on it. Everybody has access to CPUs, so it levels the playing field there in terms of mining, and it arguably makes the mining network harder to co-opt.
Right, and I do know a lot of people say that hey, I'm actually profitable. I mine Monero on this computer, and maybe I even do it in a certain season when I need heat, but I can contribute to that network and actually be profitable in it, whereas there's no way you're going to do that with an ASIC.
Right, the US government can knock on the door of Bitmain or can knock on the door of the large mining companies that are mining, that have most of the hash power, and they can say, we need you to do this, this, that, and they'll say, okay, tell me what I need to do. I don't care. This is just creating a regulatory moat for me. I'm actually benefiting from the fact that you're asking me to implement these regulations, and I'll do that for you in exchange for me having the monopoly over being, right? Exactly. So we see that this happen in the pharmaceutical industry, all these things. So Monero has that, and I think that's a great fight against being co-opted. It also has, I would arguably, dynamic blocks contribute to that, so that it scales on chain. So you don't have to rely on a second layer that could arguably be co-opted and fiatize it. And then I would say its privacy too plays into it as well. Of course. Obviously adding fungibility, but then once again, not being able to approach large mining farms and say, we want you to serve out these transactions, because you can't even do that on Monero.
And we are seeing that in other chains, both mined chains like Bitcoin, where some of the mining pools explicitly censor OFAC transactions, and definitely on Ethereum. I think it's already over 51% of the validators will censor OFAC transactions, whereas there's no way to know what an OFAC transaction is.
Right. And I would say one other thing to that same effect of being unstoppable, something that's not talked about a lot, is the tail emission, right? And the tail emission plays into Monero's security model.
Talk about that. What's the tail emission? How does that help out?
Bitcoin is capped at 21 million coins. It's going to reach that cap at one point. Monero has a nominal cap at 18.6 million, and then thereafter there's a constant rate of Monero, a small amount, a tail emission that's emitted. Every 2 minutes, 0.6 Monero is emitted. So there's effectively less Monero than Bitcoin currently, and there will be to around 2040. And then thereafter, it'll start to slowly creep up. But it's effectively disinflationary, right? Because the rate that's emitted is a small amount over time as the denominator gets larger, right?
It becomes
the numerator stays the same.
Right, exactly. It becomes much less meaningful, the amount of inflation that you gain, because it's just a small percentage of all coins.
And so the reason why Monero does this is because this gives Monero more guaranteed security in the future.
I was going to ask you, how does that tie into being more secure?
Right, because there'll always be a reason for miners to mine, right? And then it also ties into Monero's dynamic block size. As more transactions are made, the block size gets larger, you can fit more transactions in a block. The fees actually go down with Monero on chain as more people use it. You have more people using Monero. You have block rewards now going up for miners, plus they have the tail emission. As opposed to Bitcoin, where it's really, the incentive is to not use Bitcoin. It's to not transact on chain. So now you have miners not receiving, potentially not receiving enough reward for their efforts, especially given the fact that the block reward ends at 21 million.
There's been all of the different avenues to scale the chain are basically removing rewards from the miners. So it's only getting worse and worse over time for Bitcoin.
And they may have to, that's another arguable attack vector of why it can be co-optable, because now politically you'll have entities that will want to raise the cap of Monero.
Exactly. This is super insightful, educational, entertaining.
Yeah, we could talk all day.
But maybe people want to tune in to
Yeah.
more content from you, Doug? Where can
So
they
yeah,
go?
if I could shill some things, I would
Exactly.
say check out the Monerotopia conference, which is happening in February 2026, Monerotopia.com. We do the Monerotopia live show every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. I think it's an amazing show.
Are you going to do it this Saturday?
We
little
will
tough.
see, because we're just
try,
actually
yeah.
just going to be streaming talks at that time,
Cool,
but it'll
cool.
be on the Monerotopia channel. Paul, if you ever want to jump on that as a guest, you're always welcome to.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And anybody, it's a very open show. You could come, jump up on stage, ask questions every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern.
Sweet.
I would also, I'll shill Monero Node as
we didn't
well.
get to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I won't go into great detail, but it's a plug and play Monero node. The best way to use Monero is to run your own node that you connect to with your Cake wallet or your Edge wallet, so you're avoiding malicious nodes without going into detail.
Cool.
And then another project I'm really passionate about right now is XMR Bazaar.com.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Something you had launched.
So that's
correct.
a Monero-based peer-to-peer marketplace. It's been going for about a year.
Nice.
And yeah, you guys can check it out. It's gotten some good traction.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so this is actually promoting the good actual use of Monero. It's not just like, oh,
Yes.
let's trade it for something else, hodl it.
Yes.
We can actually buy real world
You
goods.
can go on XMR Bazaar
Nice.
today and buy fresh Parmesan cheese from a small region
Nice.
in Italy, paid with Monero. shipped to your
Parmigiano
house.
Reggiano?
Yes, like the best I've
Whoa,
ever
okay,
had.
cool.
I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
And XMRChat.com. I'll mention that one too, because that's
cool with that.
you should consider using that.
Yeah,
That's-
no,
so that's
like
a way
signal alternative.
to send Monero-based super chats. No
Okay.
fees taken. It's all on the Monero network. Same with XMR Bazaar. No fees to list. No transaction fees. It's all peer-to-peer. You're just using the Monero network.
How are you using the Monero network without paying a fee? Because
Well, you're paying the Monero transaction fee.
the Monero. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so the
yeah,
Monero
yeah.
transaction fee. So you're
Yeah.
setting a transaction with some actual messaging.
Yes.
On there, and
Yes.
I'm just paying a Monero.
And
fee.
it connects to StreamYard or
And it's
OBS,
encrypted?
and you can very easily show the chats on your live stream. So it's like a super chat.
And if I'm just sending a message to you, for example, then with XMR Chat, it's encrypted, I presume. And
Yeah, well, we're working on direct messaging, and we want
Okay,
to try
got
to
it.
make it turn it into also a way to just like, oh, here's a great way to get in touch with Paul, right?
Got
I
it.
can send him, maybe if I send him $100 worth of Monero with my private DM chat, he'd be more apt to responding.
I'm usually
like-
pretty apt at responding. I'm
But
pretty good
then,
at responding to
this
most.
is like
I'll say,
it's
yeah,
a
I get
good
it.
potential concept, right? So
Yeah,
like
no,
in
exactly.
addition to just receiving super chats, it could also become a way to like reliably contact people.
Cool, cool.
And then we're connecting it to people's Signal and their simple X, so that they'll get the
And removing
messages.
spam, because obviously spam is relying on things being basically free.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. So XMR Chat, XMR Bazaar,
Monero Node.
Monerotopia, and Monero Node. Check
Yeah.
them all out. Thanks a whole bunch, Doug.
Awesome, man.
Super appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.